You celebrating the holy day of May the 4th?
Be with you? Yeah, I guess I am probably. By not watching any of the franchise.
Oh, I am so out of all of those.
We live in an alternate timeline where this happened. There's a timeline where this didn't happen, and that's the one I want to be in.
It's just too much content. And Matt, you used to say there's nothing on TV. You're right, there was nothing. So we went, and then everybody's got to have their own streaming service. And my frustration is, for me to be a fan of the Marvel films when they were coming out, I had to watch like 3 movies a year. That's what a diehard fan did. Now I have to spend pretty much a quarter of my life watching, TV shows, and some of them aren't good.
Yeah.
But you have to power through because there's some garbage that they're going to reference later. And eventually, this is what happened to me. We talk a little bit about my World of Warcraft addiction. Blizzard introduced a feature that introduced gear score effectively. So you couldn't do certain dungeons unless you had an average gear score. So that people didn't just level up to, say, 70 or 80 and
hitch a ride with a
hitch a ride
or something.
But here's the problem. I had to work. My friends took time off. Like, they would often be in the trades and be laid off during the winter when the expansions were launched. They would be 200-300 points gear score higher.
Yeah.
It stopped becoming social. I would have to go and play pickup groups. And pickup groups suck. So I went from like, I can't play with my friends anymore. I have to play with these pickup groups to get the gears to catch up with them. So I was being punished socially. And so then eventually it was just like, there's no reason for me to play. This isn't fun anymore. And I guess eventually they got rid of all of that, right? But when somebody told me, I said, yeah, but I'm free. I'm cured. They fixed the problem.
That was the cold turkey motivation I needed.
They made the game so miserable to me that I haven't played. And yeah, they may have gotten rid of that feature, but I don't want to play. I have so much more time now.
Yeah.
I used to just like run home, do your dailies and stuff, and you play 6-8 hours a day.
I mean,
Baldur's Gate scares me. I really want to play it. And I've heard nothing but amazing things. I know the moment I do, see ya.
They just released a big update. Patch 8 is pretty large, but it's crossplay and stuff.
They were talking about it at D&D. They said the big thing is the crossplay, which has really helped because now you can play people on consoles.
Yep, which is pretty sweet. But Oblivion came out remastered.
I saw that they redid Oblivion.
That's what I was playing last night.
Oh, okay. So that's how I literally was reading an article this morning and I didn't see when it was.
They had a trailer yesterday, and then the guy's like, and it's out now. And obviously some people were like speculating and assuming based on development time and all that jazz, but like my buddy.
It's just a remaster version, right? Of the old
but the fact that, Xbox 360 didn't have, it had limited storage on a disc, so all the voice actors have been redone. It's Unreal Engine 5 now, and it's pretty huge. It's actually kind of awesome. But I did the tutorial, so I don't know yet.
And that's all as far as you got?
Yeah.
Well, now I'm excited. All right. Now here's the other thing that I need to find out. Because I don't carry a computer that can play games. Steam Deck compatibility verified.
Yeah. I think it would work, but barely. So you have to play on low settings and all that jazz, but I think you could do it. Because you can run Skyrim on there.
All right. Well, then we need to move fast because I got some Oblivion to play. Well, we're back. We're going to go speed run edition of the Lighthouse IT Solutions podcast so that I can play video games. That's right. You're back for another episode of the Lighthouse IT Solutions podcast. I'm Matt, joined ever presently by Mr. Griffin.
Eternally present.
Eternally present. I'm pretty excited. I know I'm like all over the place mentally, whatever. And if you listen to this, I hope the entertainment comes off because I'm in a good mood today. But the one thing I don't have is any form of Adderall or Ritalin in my system. So if we oops a squirrel today, I'm just going to preemptively apologize.
Oh, we will. But we're going to digress.
But listen, I got to celebrate yesterday with my favorite holiday. Well, maybe I didn't celebrate yet, but it was the 1st of May.
Oh. I don't know if anyone's really going to know. Have we made this
Well,
joke
if you're
before?
a Jonathan Colton fan, you already know. And if you're not, Jonathan Colton.
We'll leave it at that.
It's getting nicer out. We're starting to finally, we don't have to worry about snow. It's the happy time. We can be happy again. We're coming up on, at the end of this month, we actually get a day off. It's the most punishing thing. Like you end, the second half of the year, you basically average every other month there's a holiday. But the first half of the month, there's nothing.
Yeah, there's nothing. The first half of the year, there's nothing.
Yeah, that's what I meant. I said month, didn't I?
Yeah.
Thank you. It's okay. I told you I'm everywhere today. So it's just exciting. We're almost there. You're out of the holiday drought. You're coming into the summer. It's just exciting.
Freaking me out how far along we are in 2025 now. Things have been moving quick.
Yeah. Excited for it, though. Like I'm ready for it. But you know what? I'm gonna hit us off with a nice, I think, fun one. Okay. Your mom ever tell you that manners don't cost nothing? She ever tell you that? Like teach you?
I've never heard that all right, I have heard that, but I've never heard that from her specifically. But manners obviously quite important.
What do you say, baby Griffin?
Thanks, dude. Good on you, mate.
Good on you, mate. So many of us heard our mamas tell us that manners don't cost a thing, so you should use them as much as possible. But is that wrong? Fascinating article that I was reading.
AI seems to think so, maybe?
Sam Altman mentioned today, somebody asked him that question. So like, hey, these like filler words that we use.
Yeah, it's been a joke. It's become a meme, honestly. Saying please or thank you to AI so that they don't, come back later on.
I do not think this is a joke. AI has the ability of, I'm not going to say it's thought, but if it ever becomes...
some of the bigger models like, 4.0 or whatever it is.
They can do reasoning.
Now have expanded memory. So it'll reference your previous chats if you allow it as well. So if you say, dinner near me, and 3 chats ago you mentioned that you lived in San Francisco, it'll infer.
Go through and it'll be like, hey, I know you're...
Yeah.
What do you think about this? So here's what we mean by this. Sam Altman came out and said, somebody asked him, how much do you spend on people saying things like please and thank you?
I never thought about it.
And Altman, who is CEO of OpenAI,
yep.
So one of the big LLMs, he admits that saying please and thank you may actually be costing them in the neighborhood of tens of millions of dollars a year. However, I love the way he put it. He said it's tens of millions of dollars well spent. What he's saying by it costing millions of dollars is those are words that ultimately aren't getting to, when you're prompting an AI, you're really asking questions based on a model, and
those generally don't
they're
add
converted
much,
into tokens, and then those tokens are architected into sort of this, creating this relationship between all of the other tokens and comparing it against other models that say come close, and then it can provide reasoning based on it, or provide results based on that.
It has to process those words no matter what.
So it has to process these words. And ultimately, please and thank you don't actually do anything other than they are processed by these intense computers, only to go, yeah. I've heard that's not entirely true, though. Some models will reflect your tone. And if you use please and thank yous, it's a more professional and structured tone.
Yeah, if you don't do that, is it going to be more casual, or?
I mean,
I guess that's model to model.
If you tell a joke, if you start getting, you'll notice that the LLMs will start telling you, right?
True,
the models will start telling you jokes. If you're very to the point and you tell it that you want it to be highly technical, it'll be highly technical. I've never had it say please back per se, but if you use please and thank yous, I do think it affects how it's toned.
I'm waiting for AI to start using the filler words. So it'll say something and then it'll say, or I mean, or any of those.
That would be more fun, is if you're like, us cost us $100,000 a year.
Well, when you think about voice search and the response of voice, that really makes it feel human when it starts using those kind of things. So I wonder if that does give some sort of value, but I haven't seen it yet.
That's true. What about people who are terrible at grammar? Like the they're there, right?
It does understand,
that people are dumb.
Yeah, it knows.
But it has to process that that's not what you intended.
Fair. I don't know what the back end looks like on that.
right?
Oh, yeah.
So there has to be architecture that understands that's a mistake.
Yeah. Fix this mistake
you made,
for the understanding.
and then to get more relevant. So think about
Man,
that.
AI is fascinating.
It's
I mean, the large language models specifically. These are fascinating.
not the movie AI.
No, that's just weird. Have you seen Weird Al? Just keep making that joke.
Because everybody says that. It's Al.
Yeah.
Well, talk to you a little bit about some security news. And the first one that I'm going to get right out of the way is one that actually does personally affect us here at Lighthouse. So we generally stay under the radar somehow. I don't know how we always manage it.
It's pretty infrequent that you're using a software that has a major vulnerability.
Yeah. So I want to get into it just because everybody's like, oh no, what's happening? And I don't want them to think that anything bad has necessarily happened. But there's a company called Gladinet, and they make a couple of software applications. They specialize in the file sync and share space, and they have two platforms, CenterStack and TrioFox. For those curious, file sync and share, it's kind of like a OneDrive, more enterprisey. The idea is it's file sharing, but it's cloud-based. The security researchers at our favorite place, Huntress, identified and documented active exploits happening early last month and saw that the TrioFox and CenterStack application servers were being attacked. The flaw would later be proven and cataloged as CVE 2025-30406. Added in April, carries a severity score of 9.8. Remember, these are out of 10.
That's not good.
And the vulnerability stemmed from using out of the box. It used a hard-coded cryptographic key as part of the default installation. Okay, so what can happen is the threat attackers can use these default keys since they know exactly what they are, and it's an ASP.NET server that it runs on. They can bypass view state protections. View state is something in ASPX that's used to check and make sure that your session is what it's supposed to be. Completely bypass it because you know your decryption keys and everything, and execute code directly into IIS, the web server's application pool. For the most part, these should be isolated to the pool's permission. However, depending on how that IIS pool is configured, there's a potential that you could run PowerShell and get to a spot where you could escalate the session. Huntress was pretty quickly able to identify the exploit using their EDR system. As a result of, believe it or not, they noticed behaviors that were very similar to the recent, we didn't really talk about it here, but there was a Crush FTP vulnerability, very similar in terms of what had happened here. And so because the attack was so similar, Huntress has the ability to create temporary sort of like, they call them 0-day monitors, and using what they refer to as like AI monitors, they take triggers that they can say, put this on heightened alert, monitor for these. They noticed that, and they noticed that in these TrioFox and CenterStack servers.
They using that Gemini cybersecurity tool.
I'm sure they get invited, right? Okay, so there was a patch released for it, and of course you are urged to rotate the keys and do all kinds of stuff. So what I want to kind of address right now is that program may not mean anything to you. However, we have our product called Harmony Cloud Drive, which is a file sync and share service powered by CenterStack.
Yep.
Is actually under the hood is what the engine is that we use. Now it is completely rolled on our own. We manage it ourselves. We have our own storage. It's not anything affected by the hosted solution, but we would be affected by this vulnerability. Now, I'm very thankful that we do things in such a way that we do have a lot of forward thought. The cloud drive infrastructure that we have set up allows us to do maintenance on individual nodes without affecting the overall reliability of the service in most cases. So when this came to be and the update was processed, effectively the way it works is we can pull servers out of production, run the maintenance pieces, and then put them back in production without affecting users at all.
Yeah, no downtime.
We use multiple servers, yeah. So by doing that, we were able to deploy the patched update in the middle of the workday because we didn't really want to mess around with this.
Yeah, that's something to do out of cycle.
And in reading a 9.8 severity score.
Yeah.
But, I would say, like, we wanted to make sure it got done. However, we weren't using out-of-the-box configuration. We did do hardening on the server, so I don't think, which would have included us customizing the cryptographic keys. So I don't believe we were ever going to be affected by this.
We're technically vulnerable, but might as well patch.
But you needed a patch, and this does fix some other pieces to it, so it didn't hurt anything. So long and short, that's kind of what we did there. We knew that we had performed the hardening techniques, which, to their credit, when we began deploying and implementing and architecting Cloud Drive, was recommended to us. So it looks like the people who were affected just sort of installed CenterStack and called it good. There was very little customization to it.
Yeah.
Because we had to architect everything, hey, we're doing multiple server deployments, this, that, and the other. We were going to do the hardening stuff too. But I think if you just install it on one box, if you do a single server install. We did take a look, did not see any indicators of compromise on any servers on our cluster or see anything overly out of the normal. And of course, we run Huntress EDR. They provided us with an alert that effectively confirmed all of those things that said, hey, you need to make sure that you're patched. They can't read patch level on Huntress, but it did say, we saw that you're running. You look clean. Everything looks fine, but just make sure you get the patch installed. Yeah. So everything was kind of like doubly confirmed, but kind of like the 3CX thing, just a bit of a scary moment there. Yeah. You just go, okay, something we employ the use of is in the news this week.
Yeah, that's never a good feeling, but it's also a good feeling when you read into it and you're like, oh, okay, I think we're good.
Yeah, I think we're good. Could we have waited till maintenance cycle to do it too? 100%, but I'm just going to level with
Why
you.
Wait?
It was a CVSS score of 9.8. Why take chances?
Yeah, especially if you don't have to take anybody down.
And we're structured. The biggest thing is I structured it the way I structured it because when we were doing it, we wanted to be able to do maintenance easily on the servers with as little impact to customers as possible.
Yeah. Very cool. Yeah.
So, CenterStack, now you've never heard of it, now you do. You had a moment of panic, and now you don't. So there you go.
Emotional roller coaster.
Thank you. But once again, thank you to Huntress, man. What a company.
Dude, yeah, they are so good.
I was on a webinar recently. I'm really excited to try, but the webinar that I was on, they now do incident training. Oh. So there's
like simulation training?
Yes. So we're doing fishing, like we do fish simulation. They now have incident simulation.
Yeah, I remember looking into a company that did that solely. But that's cool that Huntress is doing or starting to offer this kind of thing. Is it a person-led or is it video-based or?
It's
do we not know?
It's not person-based. It is automated. They didn't cover too much on it. I think we need to take a look a little bit more deeply into it. Yeah. But I think it would be great because what happens in case of an incident, it isn't like it truly brings you down. It's not a true full incident where they would come in and you get consent and you say, okay, we're gonna pretend you get ransomware.
We're gonna hack you,
and then we're gonna see. It is more of a what are you supposed to do kind of thing. I think it's more browser based decision making, like if you're gonna play internet chess.
Interesting. Okay.
So it's in a browser. It's full. It's all fake. But
yeah.
But it does sort of like evaluate what your team's response would be. I gotta come clean. I didn't cover something during our last podcast.
Missed something? Never.
No, I didn't miss it. I just didn't cover it because I didn't know how it was going to be or if it was going to be a big deal or not. So that's what you have on some of these things. Oracle Cloud, which was at one point in time, I believe, supposed to be the data source provider for TikTok in the U.S.
Who knows what's happening now? But yeah.
Who knows what's happening now? I don't even, whatever. So in March, a security researcher named CloudSec said that they had discovered a threat actor selling 6 million records claimed to be from the Oracle Cloud's SSO, single sign-on, or lightweight directory access protocol. This is a fancy way of saying user accounts.
Yeah.
That included a bunch of things. Primarily, though, we're going to say the passwords for the SSO in encrypted format. They were hashed. Key files, which are used for decryption purposes, and a bunch of other stuff like Java keys, and let's just put it this way, decryption keys, a lot of security-oriented items.
Yeah, things you do not want to be on the dark web being sold.
Yeah, here's why I didn't pick it up. At the time when we were producing for the podcast, it was a he said, she said situation.
Was Oracle denying?
Oracle flat out denied, said this is ridiculous. Nobody's been attacked. This is dummy data. Blah, 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 and came out pretty freaking hard against this security researcher. And I made the mistake of, even though my gut told me, I don't know why some companies are like this for me, my gut had told me that it was probably all, smoke and mirrors. I chose not to report on it because...
I mean, it's a rumor at that point.
It felt too rumory,
yeah.
And even though my gut was they probably were hacked and that they were covering up, I didn't have proof. Yeah. You got two people who are saying.
But we're here now.
Well, I'm bringing it to you, so now it's obviously not. Well, why don't we continue our drama? So I didn't report on this because initially, look, Oracle's denied that any breach occurred and the data had been stolen at all. So then CloudSec, SEK, would later respond and say to that denial and say, well, we had confirmation and we had our three. A lot of researchers, journalists, things, you need at least 3 separate confirmations. And they said, we did base it upon 3 confirmations. The subdomain that was used and claimed by the threat actor is an Oracle Cloud server. Login.us2.oraclecloud.com was what was used. Data being shared by the threat actor, it's sort of because they find this on the dark web, right?
Yeah.
Some of that data being shared were known to be Oracle Cloud customers, such as FedEx and PayPal.
Not dummy data.
So we know that it's very likely not dummy data. We also know that login.us2.oraclecloud.com was single sign-on servers for production.
Oh.
Now, the other thing that sort of helps add credence to all of this is later the person, because of all of the public denial that Oracle had, the threat actor actually created an X account and started saying, oh, if you're an Oracle Cloud customer, you should get in touch with me. I will provide independent verification for your organization that I have your data. And also put in a whole bunch of other information, very specific details about the attack and how they accomplished it. So directly flying in the face of it.
Ooh. So
the threat actor claims that it had used sophisticated attacks using CVE 2021 35587. Now, if you've ever noticed something about the CVE, it's CVE dash and then a 4-digit number that corresponds to the year that it be.
Yeah, why is that one 4 years ago?
So CVE-2021-35587, which if you go back and look it up is a CVSS score of 9.8, which explicitly affects an application called Oracle Access Manager, which is a single sign-on system.
So they used an existing vulnerability that had not been patched?
Seems that this server was running Oracle Fusion 11G, which had a release date and a patch code of 2014.
Oh.
So this environment was unpatched for 10 years.
Jeez.
I'm bringing this up because there's so much confusion. Oracle still says that while there was an incident, no data was stolen.
Okay.
Because the data that was stolen is encrypted and ergo useless. So there's no cause for concern. But then we also know that they have reached out independently to certain organizations. We don't know the content of it. So there's still the smoke and mirrors by Oracle as to what's going on. There's still a lot of cover-up to the point where CISA is now getting in on the board. So the government's basically going in and said, hey, look, here's the deal. We don't exactly know what's happening yet. Maybe they get investigated as a result of all of this.
Yeah.
However, in the immediacy, if you're an Oracle Cloud customer, because they're not being forthcoming, you should just assume that these records are yours. So, because this is user account data,
6 million, man.
6 million records. If this is, you need to do password resets. You need to make sure you're using MFA. You need to go through your incident response plan as if you were breached.
Yeah.
Because they won't tell you if you are or not.
And 6 million. It's
6 million.
likely.
Could.
Yeah.
Who knows? But yeah, my favorite part is Oracle is reaching out to certain users, and their verbiage on it is they aren't confirming the breach, but simply that they're reaching out saying, hey, we had an incident involving 2 obsolete servers. The data was accessed, but the data is useless. Well, if they were obsolete, then why were they hanging out on the internet? Why would the address be login.us2? US2 would be a region code. You know, login isn't like login-old. It's login.
It's active. It's current.
It's friggin' active.
Yeah.
So I got one more story to kind of talk about because I think this one is important. It's not really, it's security news, but it's not security news. And I love puns. Unfortunately, when I write puns in my show notes, they just don't really translate to audio because we really dodged a bullet on this one. I guess that one works better than some of the other ones I've come up with.
Yeah. When you have to like articulate it, it's sometimes often.
Yeah, I have to tell you that I spelled it funny.
Yeah.
So I've made of course, when we talk about these, I mean, just in the show alone, I've referenced the CVE program twice with a CVE number. Did you know that there is a not-for-profit that is responsible for the management and cataloging of that data?
Had not thought about it.
The group is named MITRE, M-I-T-R-E. In fact, they're even responsible for making some of the penetration testing tools to help security researchers do their testing.
Do they make saws too?
They don't. It's MITRE.
Dang.
We had a little bit of a panic, and I will simply put it this way. Whatever side of the fence that you are on in terms of politically, I think it's fine and acceptable to say that we need to manage government spending. I think we all agree with that.
Yeah, but the conflicts are where that is.
Yeah, I think what we're going to get into is, so mad panic for several hours last month. So MITRE is exclusively funded for the CVE program by the U.S. federal government.
Yeah.
So some mad panic existed because that contract expired and CISA did not have the authority to renew.
Oh.
So the contract lapsed. Now what's this mean? Well, MITRE's one of their core focuses is that they do this program. There's now no money. So some of this comes from bug bounties because security researchers, they're encouraged to find these vulnerabilities because they get paid. Some entity. Now, let's say Lighthouse developed our own software. We're probably too small to pay a bug bounty on that software. But it's still important that it be secure. So there's certain things like some of that funding covers the actual like admin and maintenance. Some of that money does go towards paying these bug bounties,
which pushes the security of the industry.
Yes, exactly. So even though we can't afford it, if we were to write something and somebody would find a vulnerability, that security researcher would still get a benefit from it.
Yeah.
Because, Microsoft, Google, I believe in Adobe, they have bug bounty programs directly.
Yeah, wasn't Microsoft doing that first?
Microsoft
basically?
had huge ones.
Yeah. Maybe it was just
if you hack our stuff, because remember they had their Trusted Computing Initiative in the 2000s. That's really what started this model. So security researchers would then start attacking their software.
Yeah.
But the idea with the Trusted Computing Initiative is that you had to give them the opportunity to patch it first before you disclosed it.
Yeah.
In the old days, what they would do is security
Wild
researchers would say, we hacked Windows, here's how you do it.
And then they'd have to scramble.
Microsoft would have to create a patch.
Yeah.
So by doing this, they said, listen, we want some, non-disclosure. You're allowed to share your findings, but you need to give it 90 days to allow our customers to get updates and install.
And we'll pay you for this.
But we will pay you to tell us right away so that we can work on fixing it.
Yeah.
And that way, we're addressing security without tempting people to hack it. Because that's really the big thing of what would happen is researchers would publish their findings and say, here's how you do it. Here's your proof of concept. And you go, okay, I can do that. And there was probably no patch, or it hadn't been long enough that everybody had that patch.
Yeah.
So you're right. Yeah, they were kind of real responsible for this program. So those big companies have these bug bounty programs. Well,
not all companies do that.
But not all companies do. And
specifically.
you really should have it. So programs like the CVE program allowed this type of stuff to happen. Well,
and they almost lost funding. So we would have lost
they
that.
technically did for about like 6 hours.
Man.
So I would say the good news is, spoilers, is that I keep talking about it. In the same day, thankfully, CISA did extend the contract for 11 more months, but it was several hours in which there was no, the program was expired.
Yeah.
Would have ended a 25-year run of the CVE program potentially.
Yeah.
And as I said, I've referenced it twice in the show. If you go, we talk about it, I always give you CVE information. So many people rely on this catalog of vulnerabilities. It's supposed to be independent. It's supposed to be, useful to tell you how to fix it. It is a common database of vulnerabilities, how to correct them, and it holds people accountable to keeping systems secure. So it would have been huge. So because of this non-renewal, in the process, MITRE set up the CVE Foundation, and I think this is a good idea that they're still going to keep it going. But MITRE established the CVE Foundation to be able to accept financial support from third parties to that nonprofit, and then that nonprofit will fund it. So they should have no idea who's providing money to them.
Oh, okay. Good.
So that should protect the independent.
I was just saying
that was the whole thing, is because it was 100% federally funded, there was no corporate interest or corruption or anything, because it was all just part of
But now some
government.
big players might be like, this is something to fund.
I paid you thousands of dollars or millions of dollars. I want our names to be not on here, or whatever. So,
that foundation will help quite a bit,
because of how things are, they said, now we're definitely going to keep the foundation running, because
now we're not relying on
we're only renewed for 11 months, and
who knows what'll happen.
What'll happen in 11 months. And this program is important.
Yeah.
This is a cyber world that we're dealing with. This is, it's not espionage per se, but these exploits are how our enemies, state enemies get in to attack us, how, these crime gang, security is the name of the game.
Yeah.
This is, unfortunately, a non-negotiable anymore.
If I tell you, my business got attacked, do you think that was physical? No. You think that's digital.
Exactly.
It's gotten to the point where culturally, this is how wars are waged.
Yeah, so thankfully the funding was renewed. We got 11 more months, but I tell you what, you're definitely going to want to take a look at the CVE Foundation and possibly supporting them. I legitimately think that we will. Every little bit will help.
Yeah. So I got some high-level stuff I want to go through.
You got it.
We'll keep it a little broad, but I wanted to mention something that we talked about that's really finally getting some traction, and that's the iPad OS overhaul.
What changes to the iPad are they going to do
as you
that
called,
nobody could have possibly predicted?
Yeah. I think we started talking about this when they started releasing keyboards for iPads forever ago, and now here we are saying...
I think when they started releasing 12-inch versions of the iPad. Yeah. As I sit here on my 12-inch iPad.
Exactly. iPad OS, they are now trying to, or rather soon they will be trying to mirror Mac OS. So they're going to make it so it's a lot similar to that in terms of functionality and just experience on their tablets, which, is like the Surface line, basically. It's this weird amalgamation of desktop tablet, and it's where everyone's going, and it's what everyone wants. So here we are, Apple, finally.
Yeah.
At the point where you're going to combine your OS most likely into a singular one that isn't so, tablet or computer focused. It's both.
Yeah, coming up on about a year ago, I think I know I've talked about it even here before. My experiment was I wanted to see how close of an experience I would have to having a tablet to using as a near dedicated device.
Has it been more than a year?
It's not been a year. It was last August.
Yeah.
So we're coming up on a year.
Yeah.
And I would argue I am 80% there.
Yeah.
Now, granted, the 20% that's missing, is painful.
Is that ARM related, or is that just because it's a tablet?
Honestly, a lot of it comes down to how it handles multitasking. Some of it is actually the operating system itself, because I would say when I'm doing software development, it is possible, but it's very hack jobby, because iPad's not really looked at like that, right? It's more of a consumable device. Mm-hmm. Even though I'm sitting here, my iPad has a trackpad keyboard.
Yep.
And, I can run dual displays off of it. Like, that's a computer. Whereas if I was on a full-blown version of Mac, I would have a little bit more underlying. Like, I can't get into a POSIX terminal. I can't, there's just a bunch of stuff that is more locked down. That said, it's pretty quick. The multitasking is the other thing. There is a multitasking implementation in iPad where there's windowing, but I actually have to sacrifice a lot of screen real estate to window.
Oh.
So
is there multiple desktops, or
no?
Yeah.
No.
So I guess that's limited for sure.
But if you were to look at it, you get these little tabs off to the side, but you have to have probably about 2 inches of screen real estate
just wasted on that
for your tabs. And I guess you would call them workspaces. They're kind of because you can combine windows together and then minimize those together.
It's kind of like a
desktop, but it doesn't work or react.
Yeah, macOS would be so much easier for that. Yeah, but 5 years ago, iPad OS was more similar to iOS, and now we're thinking
they are diverging.
More similar to macOS. I do really wonder if we're just going to see it completely go away and they're going to merge, or if they're going to just make it even more similar, or branch off into a completely different thing. I don't know.
Mac OS had to become more iOS because they use ARM-based processors. There's so much code base. I think they're making their changes strategically because the iPads were powered by ARM, so you have your iOS. So they just need to adapt iOS for the iPad.
Yeah.
But now that the Macs are using ARM processors, because ultimately the processor, I believe in this, is effectively the same as what you would get in some Mac models.
Yeah.
So I believe
it's the M whatever.
Is mine an M2 or an M4? I can never remember. Let's see. I'm an M4 processor in this, which I believe is in the MacBook Air.
I think, yeah.
A very similar processor to the Mac.
There's M4 Max and M4. There's different variants.
There's the Max and the Pro
in terms of generation, yeah.
But this is effectively the same as say a MacBook Air.
Makes sense if you're making your own chips. Make it so that your models can all use the same chips.
So now Mac OS has been adapted for the ARM.
Yeah.
It shouldn't take too much.
Makes sense. Well, I'm curious about what happens to Vision OS. So their Vision Pro headsets kind of, honestly, I don't know if it failed necessarily. I think they kind of expected it to be...
It did exactly what it did.
Yeah.
It did. Sorry, that's dumb.
It did exactly
what they anticipated it would do.
It's supposed to be innovative and different and not going to sell 1 million copies. They only made 300,000.
And it's bleeding edge. So. You're not even talking cutting edge. You're talking bleeding edge.
Yep. But they have said they're making 2 new Vision Pro headset models. I'm going to not say Vision Pro because I don't think it's going to be called that. I think it's just Vision headsets.
Yep.
But that's happening. So we're going to get 2 different ones, which is exciting. And also, they are still under the guise, we're making this because we want AR glasses. That's where we want to be. That's what we're trying to make these into.
Like how Meta's got sort of kind of those Ray-Ban collaboration, but
which I have gotten good reviews, man.
But it doesn't have a display.
Yeah.
It's just camera.
And voice and, yep. So we're getting there, but it's still slow. But I'm glad to see people are still making this kind of innovation stuff. I'm sad when people are like VR is dead or AR is dead. I want it to still be a thing, but
it's not.
I don't think it is. It's just too early right now. Similar to what we talked about last podcast with some Microsoft innovations. Some of it was just too early.
Yep. And we talked about, I remember when we talked about the BOS stuff, they got into internet-based refrigerators back in the 2000s.
Way before its time.
And we all thought it was novel and cool, but now we live in a world where you can webcam in to your refrigerator to see what's in there.
Yeah.
Right?
Wild.
Your refrigerator can tell you what food you need.
Yeah. Send you a grocery list based on it.
So somebody needs to be inspired by those, and that's I think what happened here.
And like we both said, I'm excited for the next iteration of those. I wasn't going to do the first one. Second iteration might be sweet. I don't know.
You're exactly right. We knew the first one was going to be tough. Yeah. There's going to be a lot of compromises. And the other thing they have to figure out is what's important to users versus what's not. Is it important that it has a battery pack or that it doesn't?
Yeah.
Well, they have to plan for both. And then get people go, well, this is too bulky. And
yeah. We'll see. Just like everything they've made. And also with their tariff stuff, we mentioned the whole like 3 planes full of iPhones came over or whatever right before everything. But now that there's an extension, they've made more moves to completely change Apple's. They've been making the changes to move iPhone production to India for a long time, admittedly.
Yep.
But they solely now are making iPhone 16e in Brazil.
That's an interesting one.
I think that's kind of fascinating. Again, obviously it's because of the tariff stuff, but I'm curious to see how that develops as things will, go forward. So, well, we do have some interesting stuff going on with the antitrust battles as well. A new player has entered the game.
A new player has entered.
Meta and the FTC are fighting right now. Similar story where with like Google and whatnot, where FTC is going after Meta for being a monopoly because of their social platforms. So Instagram and Facebook and sort of WhatsApp in a way. They're, Meta's obviously just saying, well, TikTok exists, YouTube exists, that kind of stuff. So we're getting to the point where that might not pass. I think Meta's actually safe here. So I don't think
I think they're adjacent. I think if you were going to say that, is there a conglomerate? Is there somebody who is close to
They're
me?
close.
They're close.
Yeah. But I don't think they're there yet. What's interesting is also the fact that in 2018, they almost sold Instagram. So it would have been a completely different story, man. Who knows? But along the same lines, Google is also getting targeted again for being a monopoly in a second way. The search issue had come up, and that's all been played out for the most part.
Still, there's new worries about how AI gets used and everything.
Yeah, but Google Ads specifically right now is getting targeted, and I think rightfully so. It's a pretty big issue with them being basically the main way that you advertise on search engines right now.
Yep.
So Google Ads is being targeted. Nothing new has happened, but they're getting called out.
One to look at.
Yep.
One to watch.
Yep. Speaking of Google, though, I did want to mention that their third-party cookie thing just got canceled. They're no longer removing third-party cookies. So that's fun. But also they're getting rid of the different country domains for Google, which I thought was fascinating. So like Google FR or Google.com.uk.
Yeah.
Like all that's going away. It's just going to be Google.com.
I'm sure they'll keep the domains, but
yeah, I don't know. It's just going to forward back. I'm not really sure. And also their Gemini AI, they made a huge deal with Samsung to get them pre-installed. The 2-year agreement to get Gemini pre-installed on Samsung phones. Or Samsung devices, I think.
So they're going to do their own AI.
Yeah. So.
And leverage Gemini.
Fascinating. If the whole Google Chrome thing ends up, going for sale, basically, if Chromium has to be sold off, or not Chromium, but Google Chrome as an entity, OpenAI has put in a bid already. So.
That one scares me.
Especially because OpenAI is not going to be.
Because is it going to harvest what people are using? What analytics is a browser affiliated with an AI company going to
OpenAI they said that they want to change Chrome into an AI-focused browser. So like it's a lot more user-friendly and that kind of thing. But I think it's your point. I think this is the best way to get data for OpenAI. So
and get live user metrics so you can see what data is important. So you know where to find things, right?
Yeah.
You could figure out trends and then have the LLM update to focus on those trends, right? Hey, everybody's looking for this right now.
Yeah. Speaking of social media platforms, though, the last thing I want to mention is it's kind of cool that social media platforms are finally recognizing that influencers and creators are a big deal, but not necessarily like, I'm an influencer. It's the idea that like anyone can be one. I like to point out the CEO influencer, the founder influencers is a huge thing on LinkedIn. And that's weirdly the most engaging posts. Those are the ones that are getting the most traction are founders talking about whatever. It's not their company page that's getting traction. It's their personal one. And LinkedIn has released basically kind of like a training site, a little miniature site that goes forward and teaches you how to do it, gives you strategic content, guides, and that kind of thing on how to basically
leverage this?
To leverage it, yeah. Huge.
It's genius. It's really cool.
And Pinterest is doing basically the same thing for how they want to do. They're calling it Pinterest Academy. kind of cool that people are doing that.
Teach you how to be successful.
Yeah. I mean, Meta's not doing that.
No.
LinkedIn and Pinterest, though, pretty cool. I like that a lot, actually.
Well, now aren't you going to spend some more money with them? Because you're going to be like, well, I know how to do this better.
Exactly. And Pinterest has been pushing their shopping side massively, and LinkedIn has been pushing dang near every single approach. From video to long.
It blows my mind that right now my favorite social media site is LinkedIn.
Is it because of the games? Is it because of the video? Is it because of the short form? Is it because it's just everywhere?
Well, I don't know about the games, but it's definitely the engagement is better.
Yeah.
It's not as toxic of an environment, surprisingly. Everybody's trying to be professional. So there's good dialogue that happens on LinkedIn. There's good content. Yeah, there's video now.
Yeah.
It's just it feels like a not trash. And it also doesn't feel like it's full of bots, which is weird.
I mean, again, they put a lot of money into attracting like journalists and news and all that stuff.
It feels credible.
So that people, would find it credible. It's weird, but they're doing a lot right. So,
yeah.
Love it or hate it. It's working.
It's working for me. Well, that looks like that's everything for this episode.
A lot of cybersecurity stuff, man.
Just a little bit. Some good stuff.
What's going on?
Some great stuff. We'll have to keep an eye on what happens with MITRE and the CVE program, but we got about 11 months reprieve.
I think them doing a foundation is going to help.
I hope that helps,
yeah.
But I also hope that doesn't pollute now you're taking money from individuals.
That's how they handle it, though. Yeah.
Hopefully that doesn't corrupt anything, but we shall see. So in the meantime, that does it for this episode of the Lighthouse IT Solutions Podcast. We'll be back again soon, but there's plenty for you to look at. You can take a look at our Facebook. You can take a look at our LinkedIns. You can look at all of our fun stuff. Check all of that out. You can also check out our hub at hub.lighthousesol.com. And then check out resources, blog articles, show notes for this thing, if you really wanted to, are all hanging out there.
Got a lot of cool content coming up that I think you might find interesting.
Very excited. We're making some changes here soon. I think we teased in the beginning when we started the season that we were planning on doing more with video.
And at the minimum, I got a series of blog posts coming out that I think are helpful.
Oh, that's cool. I'll have to keep an eye open. Maybe I can use them.
I think you might be an expert on the topic, so.
Oh. Is it Cheetos? Because I'm definitely an expert on Cheetos.
Yeah, I got a whole post about jalapeno Cheetos and the extra spicy ones.
Pringles hot honey. That's my thing right now. That's my snack du jour. While we argue snacks, we will catch you on the next episode of the Lighthouse IT Solutions Podcast. Stay tuned. Great stuff. Can't wait for you to see the results of it.